Tuesday morning, December 12th meeting of the Criminal Justice Committee to order. Start with roll call.
Mr. Hess,
Present.
Mr. Byrne, Mr. Lear, Mr. Washington, Mr. Legess, Mr. Snipes, Ms. Dunbar, Mr. Ritter, Ms. Parker, Mr. Fairfield, Mr. Carrico, Mr. Eckhoff, Mr. Smith, Ms. Zuccolo, Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Searay. We have a quorum.
Okay, I have not received any comment or any public comment at this time. Any public comment? We have nothing from the Chief Judge. Circuit Clerk, Ms. Cianci. In your packet, you have a copy of their monthly report. I'll take a motion to approve by Mr. Byrne, second by Ms. Parker. Good morning, Sandy. Questions and comments on your report first.
Well, for the new people, I'll go ahead and kind of explain what I've got here. The first report is the report of distribution, or disbursement. So any fees and fines that we collect go through each of these funds, and then they're distributed. In the second column, you'll see who the check, who received the check and how much they got for each thing. And then in the far right corner the far right column are the amount of cases, the number of cases that involve that amount of money. The second report, the open inventory analysis end of November. This is a report that Harris & Harris provides that shows over the course of the history how many tickets were actually forwarded to them. So in that first column, 20,177 cases were forwarded over the last several years to the tune of 7,800,000. We've taken out the felonies recently, and another company has those. We're still in the process of trying to get that all squared away, so we don't have any reports on felonies. The next page is what we've actually recovered through Harris & Harris. These are payments that are either made to us in our office or to Harris, and then they forward the money to us. So this year, go ahead.
Mr. Legess, hang on.
And two, how much do we get?
That $1.2 million is ours.
We got all of that?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
we're loaded.
So what happens is they add a 30% fee on top of our fee, and the money that's turned over to us is ours. So if you see for this last month, November, we collected $76,083 just through Harris & Harris alone. So, which should really be down because we had the amnesty program, which is what I'll go into in the next couple of reports. But
Fee already out of here? Taken out?
yes, this is all our money.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So as you can see, this year we brought in a couple 100,000 more than we did last year. So we're doing pretty good there. So total recoveries since 2011, we've brought in almost $7 million just on that alone.
Go to,
It goes through the disbursement list that you saw in the, it all still goes through all that.
okay.
Okay. So then the state's attorney court call report, they started a court call where they bring people in and they set up payment agreements. So as you can see, November they brought in $15,600. So the total that they've done for the year is $100,242, with a grand total for the last 2 years, $191,000. And then these last few pages here, this is the amnesty report. This is by agreement with the state's attorney and Harris & Harris, we're allowed to collect fee-free for the month, for a month. We don't ever know which month we're going to do until the last minute. As you can see, we brought in $98,731 in that month, and you can see what the daily totals were. So it's a lot of extra work on our part, but obviously it was fruitful. And so then to kind of break this down, I do have the list of the actual people in the cases that were paid off, and 3 people had over 10 tickets that they paid off. And there were a handful that paid between 3 and 5 tickets, and then the rest are pretty much 1 ticket or 2. There were a couple of conservation tickets paid, also a misdemeanor, felony, a DUI. So people, most of them are with their driver's licenses. Here's a felony. He only owed $60, so he paid that off. So it brings in a lot of interest. Coming in between January and April, or May basically, when the tax returns come in, we'll get really busy with that time frame too. The local debt recovery program, the clerks have nicknamed it iDrop. I know that like the municipalities call it L-Drop, but we call it iDrop. And that'll be kicking in the first quarter, and people flood in and voluntarily pay their tickets because they get their tax returns. The iDrop program, though, Harris has their files that they load to me, then I load them to the comptroller, the state comptroller. Then they have that information and they go by people's tax returns, their state tax returns, or if they're a state employee, then we are allowed to take that money, but just the state tax return, to pay off anything. And then in November they just started again, where they are identifying those that have lotto winnings, and they're able to take the money that's owed for courts through that too. So the next quarter is going to be really a hopping quarter for us, getting going with that. So any questions?
Questions or comments on the reports? I know you new guys, or the new members to the board and the new members to this committee, it's kind of overwhelming on some of these reports, but look them over, and if you've got any questions, give Sandy a call, and I would urge the new members to go see her operation at the courthouse.
Thank you. Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Anything else for us?
Well, the computerization update, we're still working on the integration for the e-filing mandate. We're in decent company. There are probably a third of the counties that are still not integrated yet, so I wish we were integrated, but at least we're not the lone wolf out there by ourselves. We're doing a conference call Friday where the design is done and we're getting ready to move forward with the testing. So eventually we'll get that, and that's just for civil cases right now. It's a big push, and we need to get that going.
Mr. Majest.
Is that the same e-file that was supposed to go into effect last January?
Yes. So we are accepting civil e-filing through Odyssey, the Tyler component that the state has mandated. So we're compliant in that respect. But we have to then, after we accept it and review the filing and collect the money, then we send it back to the filer, and then we have to print it off. So like yesterday, one of the gals was printing a document from an L lawsuit filing, like the civil lawsuits, and it was, the one filing was over 900 pages. So she had to print the 900 pages and then go back into court view and scan it back in. So
This is the one where they can come in and do their own.
well, anybody, lawyers too, and everything. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there's stations there that they can.
If they want to come in and do it, yes, but otherwise we just receive it electronically. And so she, of course, not only had to watch what she was doing to make sure that it printed well, but still multitasking, doing everything else. And then she lined up a certain printer just to do that because it was getting interfered with other things going on in the office. So we've been doing double the work for for a year now, and we've worked a lot of overtime and Saturdays. And yes, it's for comp time, but our contract allows up to a certain point that it's comp time, and then after that it's paid, or they can elect to get pay instead. So we've been doing our best to keep up. We're always behind the gun, but we're doing the best we can. So hopefully this design will help tremendously so that we can focus on customer service.
Any other questions? Mr. Wheeler?
Thank you. Sandy, do you think next month we'll be able to talk about the elimination of the special funds as we know them and the reorganization?
The reorganization,
Yeah,
yes.
and then the elimination of some of the fees.
Yes, Judge Cunnington is going to be the judge that's involved with working with the committee, whatever committee we end up having. So there's a new fine and fee structure being put into effect July 1st, and it's going to reorganize the way every circuit clerk's office, well, every county does business. It's going to be complicated. We're going to have to restructure our computer system on top of that, so that when people do pay the money, it goes in the proper fund and is dispersed properly. A great many of our fees are going to be reduced because of that, because they're trying to make it uniform across the state. So some of the smaller states are going to end up with a bump because they're not charging what some of us, are charging. So yeah, it's going to be a big deal. I sent some preliminary information that I received to a bunch of Andy and a few other people. So we're going to need to work together in the next couple of months. We know that the clerks are still kind of in a holding pattern because we know that there are still changes coming, and with the new General Assembly just picking up again in January, so things are going to get kind of harried. But what I would like to do is at least get a good portion of the work completed, so that at the end of June, when things are changing at the very last minute and it's supposed to go into effect July 1st, at least we're having less to adjust right at the end of the period. But it's going to affect, like, if a case is filed on June 30th, the amount of money is going to be different than it is on July 1st. And so then we're not sure if in criminal and traffic type cases, if someone is charged with an offense on June 30th or July 1st, is it going to be the disposition date or is it going to be the charge date that we have to have our system be able to read both versions? So it's huge. So we got a lot coming up. Thank you.
Any other questions for Sandy? Thank you. Mr. Lear? No, Kelly just slapped me and said you didn't do that. You received a copy of the minutes from November. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Byrne, second by Mr. Lear. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Steve. Kelly already hit me. Also in your package you have a copy of the state's attorney's grand jury report. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Lejeff, second by Mr. Eckhoff. Comments on your report?
You can see we're up to 736 individuals have been charged with felonies. So far this year, it's a little bit higher than where we were and what we finished the year at last year, and we've still got one or two more grand juries to go. We'll probably see about maybe a 5% increase, 5 to 10% this year over last year. There's currently, I think as of yesterday, 31, 32 pending murder or attempt murder cases in the system. Trial dates are well into next year, April, May. So some of the judges have discussed maybe getting a judge from Iroquois County to come over to the Bruce courtroom, take up some of those cases if we have
questions and comments on the report? We have a motion to, go ahead, Mr.
Just one quick question. I see, we had 8 this past month for attempted conspiracy or solicitation of murder side of it. Is that correct?
Well, that's 8 for the year.
For the year.
These are
total.
year-to-date total.
Okay, year-to-date totals.
Yeah.
Let me make sure I got this. Oh, total against person, I see. I was reading it correctly. Is there a percentage you would guess that would be juvenile versus
These are all adult.
all adult? No
Yeah,
juvenile.
juveniles, those aren't going to grand, those don't go to grand jury.
I just wanna
These
make
are
sure.
just the adult felonies.
Okay.
This doesn't count any of the misdemeanors, it doesn't count juvenile, it doesn't count any of the traffic.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Snipes.
The Supreme Court, United States Supreme Court, recently took up the Indiana cases dealing with the Eighth Amendment, dealing with a lot of the fines or whatever, and I guess this thing with the seizures and things that's kind of been customary up to this particular point. How do you see that affecting the fees and what y'all can do going forward?
You're talking about like asset forfeitures?
Like the whole, well, I guess yes, because I guess in this case, they was trying to get this guy's bike or whatever and tie it into the drug thing, and it looks like the Supreme Court is now looking at the unreasonableness of the fees, the excessive fees of the Eighth Amendment.
Yeah, so, we're careful with the discretion we exercise when we seize assets. We certainly want to know that they're related to the drug offense or to their drug dealing activity. But Illinois just had some reforms come through that went into effect this year that I think have resolved those issues that may be at play in the Indiana case.
Oh, okay. So the impact will not be as severe upon us as
No, I don't think so.
No.
It seems to be small steps toward reforming asset forfeiture, but Illinois took some pretty big steps this year, and they've changed the game for us. And it's much more difficult to seize those assets. The burden of proof is now higher. But again, we're careful with it. We're not out there to take grandma's car. But if she's letting grandson drive around and sell drugs out of it, we're going to take it. The goal here is to make sure that they're paying for it, not the taxpayers.
I was wondering, I know KMA and then some of the individuals kind of have a revenue source as far as, that's, when they do that, it kind of reimburses them for revenue, and I was looking at would it be a substantial impact upon them dealing with it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, they definitely, that it's a source of revenue by default because by statute, 2/3 of the money that you seize or the value of the item that you seize, it goes to the arresting agency. So it's not just KMED, it's every police department, every law enforcement agency in the state that gets the benefit of that. But then again, they've put the man hours into those things, they put the time in, the officer expense. So it's a way of making sure that the drug dealer is paying for that instead of the taxpayers. I don't have a problem with that. We'll see if the court does, I suppose.
Ms. Dunbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say that I was called for jury duty for the first time ever. And I had a really positive experience, Mr. Rowe's office and Sandy's staff and everything, and it was very smooth and very professional, and I was very impressed. And unfortunately, the defense didn't feel like maybe I was appropriate, but thank you for that
When you
experience.
vote on our budget, you need to know it was not the state that kicked you
I
out
know,
of the jury.
I know, I know, and I wanted to be on that jury.
We wanted you on there.
Okay, any other questions? Whoop, Ms. Parker. Your microphone, please.
Mr. Rowe, will you have in January a comparison between 2017 and 2018 to see the increase in the felonies that we can look at? I'm concerned that Kankakee City is very high, and I would like to see what the difference is between 2017 and 18 in the crime rate.
Sure. But I have to caution you. So 2016 to 2017, these numbers went up 35, 40%. However, that doesn't mean that it doesn't correlate to an increase in crime. The number of cases we had come into our office was almost about the same. It was maybe 2 or 3 more for the entire year, from 16 to 17. So we had the same number of cases coming in. It's just how many we're filing now.
Okay.
You know, we've been doing some things different. We work more closely with the investigating officers, the detectives, to get the cases in a position where we can file them. So these numbers may have gone up 40%. That by no means is that crime went up 40%. So, but I can get those statistics for you, and I'll see if I can also get the numbers from the departments on how many cases were referred to our office. I think you need to look at both of those to keep it in context.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Hang on one second. Mr. Legess first.
Jim, offenses against person, there's almost half of them are felony domestic battery. I'm sure we do, but I'll ask the question. Do we have programs where these people have to go through if they're convicted so that there's not a repeat thing?
Yeah, there is a, for first-time offenders, the court, how many years, Tom? For a while. Yeah, a long time. They've had a domestic violence diversion program in place where the offender, it's pretty substantial. You have to first go through a alcohol and drug evaluation, and then if they do have an issue, they have to address that before they can get into the domestic violence classes.
Is there much of a problem with people repeating?
With people
Repeating?
Well, we recently looked at that with Harbor House, and the recidivism rate for those offenses is substantially less than for people that don't participate in the class.
Okay, that's good.
Mr. Searoy.
And I've got the study's a few years old. We're updating it, but I'll bring that next month as well.
Lastly, Jim, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the eastern side of the county for cleaning up the ditches and convicting some of the guys that have been littering our ditches. It seems that nobody wants to rent a dumpster out there. They just want to find a piece of local farmland and dump their garbage. And we appreciate your office, and convicting some of those guys, because it seems now it has stopped a little bit. So,
you know, that was good work by the conservation officers, because you've got to catch them, you've got to get photos of them. And they had all that. But I have to say, it was I was surprised. I don't know what the word is. Probably not surprised. So we put out the DUI initiative, and the backlash was just awful, right? But then they were upset that we were enforcing DUI laws. But then everyone was so excited about the littering. So I felt like the lesson was, some people think you can drive drunk, just don't throw your stuff out the window. And that's concerning to me.
well, you drive around the county and you do notice there's a lot of garbage in the ditches, and it doesn't have to be like that.
Sure.
I appreciate somebody making a stand, so thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Snipes, Ian.
Lastly, I need you to kind of, I don't want to use the word elucidate, but it is.
I can't do that.
Yeah, I know the superintendent of schools basically in Kankakee stated that you have a program, well, there's a program through teen court to kind of address some of the issues with the teens or with high schoolers that's just kind of out of control. Now they're noticing that there are some things that can now happen where before it didn't happen. How do you see this teen court working? Would it be like a fine, or what would be the redress in order to?
So teen court is not through the state's attorney's office. The executive director at teen court is Chris Sibley, and she works in our office, but it's a completely separate program. However, it's once a month. It's in conjunction with the sheriff's department. They assist at the courthouse on that. It's a peer jury, and the kids come in. They have to admit guilt. They get to plead their case to the jury. They have students who act as prosecutor and defense attorney in those proceedings. And then at the end, the jury imposes a sentence. Usually it's community service, $25 fine. They have to do a jail tour, a couple other things. Maybe sometimes write an apology letter, maybe restitution if it's called for. I guess we'll see how that works out, but I think it's a positive program. You know, the rate of reoffending from kids who go through teen court is pretty low. And then they have to come back and volunteer as part of the program. So many of the kids that maybe came in as a offender came back as a juror, and then they've continued with the program, which hopefully keeps them involved in something positive. But you know, people need to stop asking what the schools are doing and start asking what the parents are doing. I mean, what are the
Thank you.
consequences at home as opposed to worrying about what the school's going to do?
Right.
Chairman Wheeler.
Thank you. This is just real brief, lastly, I guess. I stole your lastly, sorry, Bob. But, you know, when Sandy was talking about the court call report from your office, is Desi doing that? Who's
Yeah, that is, literally, that's pretty much one employee who prepares all of that. She goes to court with a different attorney from civil on a regular basis, but Desiree Ford does all of that work behind that collection call.
Well, that's I want to say new money for the county. We appreciate it. I'll pass that along, but thank you and your office for
Doing a great job.
You're doing a great job. This is something that didn't exist before 2017.
I'll let them know.
Oh, hang on. We have a motion and a second on the floor. I do things a little different. I hate to approve a report that we haven't even discussed. So sometimes I get hollered at for not approving it, but we have a motion and a second on the state's attorney's report. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have nothing from I have a public defender. He is not here. A report in our packet. Take a motion to approve that. Mr. Washington, second by Mr. Snipes. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Sheriff. Also in your packet you have a copy of his monthly report. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Carrico, second by Ms. Dunbar. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning,
Comments on
everybody.
the report.
Yeah, a couple. So, the monthly report, you should have received sometime Monday afternoon. I appreciate Kelly forwarding it to everybody. She sent it to every county board member, so every county board member is aware of what we're going over today in case they have any questions. In the future, hopefully that'll come directly from our office to you. I didn't have the list of the new county board members. Email address, probably could have figured some of them out since they all end in k3county.net, but nonetheless, first names sometimes are a little tricky, whether you're using your nickname or your given name, whatever. So anyway, those will get mailed to you prior to this meeting, so you have them to review in case you have any questions. And on that note, for those new to the committee and new to the board, welcome. We look forward to working with you as we go through and continue to move forward in our department. As you can see, we have what our end of the year numbers are indicating is that we have an increase in revenue of approximately $2.1 million from last year. And it was actually 1.87 million more than what we anticipated. We were anticipating 8.7, and we are actually at about 10, almost 10.6. Obviously, with the increase in revenue, there's increases in expenses as well. I don't ever want to say that this is all just flat money that the county gets. There are additional expenses that go along with the additional revenue. We do certainly work with Chairman Wheeler and Steve McCarty and kind of keep those numbers. It's a working document normally through the entire year, so that's something that we watch very closely. Our anticipated revenue in our new budget is $10 million, so and that's for bed rentals only. Our bed rentals, as I mentioned before, in this year, at the end of this year, was 10.5. So we don't have a lot of wiggle room. So, and the other thing to keep in mind is we don't have a lot more beds. So these numbers aren't going to increase like they did from 17 to 18 and from 18 to 19. Sometimes it's easy to think, oh, we had 1.8 more than you expected last year, so we're going to get another 1.8 next year, and that's not going to happen. It's going to stay fairly consistent, provided that our housing continues the way it is. Questions on that part of the revenue?
Ms. Dunbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Sheriff. This is just semantics maybe, but pertinent to some of our other conversations about ICE and separating that out from the rest of the out-of-county. You have your out-of-county numbers and then you have total inmates, and I know that people like to call them inmates and they're detainees.
Okay.
Just semantics, I know,
Okay.
but different. Is there any way you can break out the out-of-county between all the other out-of-county and ICE?
I can give you ballparks.
I don't mean for today.
No.
I mean in the future.
No, I can give you ballparks today.
Sure, go ahead.
I believe that U.S. Marshals was slightly over $5 million. Are you talking numbers or are you talking dollars?
I was talking numbers, but
Oh, okay.
go crazy
No,
with the
I had
dollars too.
I had dollars, not numbers.
Okay,
So,
go ahead with the numbers.
and ICE was slightly over $4 million, so it was about $1 million difference, and then Cook County made up
The
about
difference.
500,000 or whatever that difference is.
Okay. I was actually talking about persons.
No, that's
If you could just break out the persons, that would be
I
great.
certainly will.
Thank you so
Oh,
much.
you know what?
It's in it. Go ahead.
$80 a day for all of them?
Cook County is Cook County. We have two separate type of Cook County inmates. The SSU, which are kind of a witness protection type of, are $72 a day. A general Cook County inmate, which we have 5 of, are $60 a day. Feds and ICE are all 80. The reason for the 60, and people sometimes question, well, why do you only charge 60? Because we have a reciprocal agreement with Cook County, so that if we ever need to house somebody in Cook County, they charge us 60 and not some higher amount. So I do have ICE numbers and Marshal numbers. You want them for the year? Okay. So Chicago U.S. Marshals, we averaged 151. No. Oh, yeah, we average per month. Northern District of Indiana, we averaged 20 per month. Central District of Illinois, we averaged 19 per month. And ICE, we averaged 156 per month. I'm just amazed at myself that I had that information with me. Hey, it's better to be lucky than good.
Any other questions or comments on the report? I have one. Notice on here where last year they released 555 back to us, and this year we're already at 835. 280 more.
Yes, yes. However, and this goes to what Mr. Rowe was talking about, we've also sent more to prison as well.
Right.
So, but there are a number of people coming back from prison. There's no getting around it, and I've talked about this before, but for the newer members who may not understand something, just because a person gets sentenced to 5 years in prison doesn't mean he's going to stay there for 5 years. They're going to get good time. Most cases they're going to get good time day for day, which is day for day credit. They get credit for learning a trade. They get credit for going to school. They get credit for being just sitting in their cell not causing problems. So a 5-year sentence in most cases, an individual is going to serve maybe a year and a half. So all these sentences that you see reported in the paper, reported in the news, once they leave here, the judge has no say as to other than the statutory requirements of the sentence that they're to receive. But if they get credit for good time, that's not up to anybody local here. So though that is obviously, and now you've got all this new legislation about marijuana and serious crimes and crime reform bills that number is only going to increase from both state prison and federal prison. So.
Snipes.
Sheriff, and I guess it's between you and the state's attorney, there are some sentences that is kind of like mandated, I guess with the aggravated weapon, like an 85%, whereas some others is like 50%
Right.
of time.
Right.
So the only safeguard would be in as far as the gauge a time more seriously would be those that are saying 85%.
Yeah, and those are all by statute. So,
Right.
you know, the majority of things, more serious crimes, you know, obviously there's stricter 85%.
Yeah,
A lot of times. Sometimes it's day for day, you know. You get sentenced in. I can tell you that back in the day, and I don't know if this has changed or not because I've lost track of it, but for a while, driving suspended, which many people think, it's just a traffic offense, who cares, until that person with no license runs into you head on, then that becomes problematic. But a driving suspended sentence to Department of Corrections after it's felony driving suspended, people were being sentenced to a year in prison, and they were being let out in what she had 67 days, or that was 67 days. So so given the option and understand that, you know, we can all do basic math, or most of us can. I struggle with it a little bit sometimes, but if the state offers somebody 6 months in jail, and an individual says, well, I'll take a year in the Department of Corrections because I'll be back in 67 days. I mean, they figure that out. They know, and most people sentenced to prison know from the day they walk into the RNC at Stateville, they know the day they're getting out. So that's just the system the way it is. But I think it's important that you know that a 5-year sentence doesn't mean somebody's going to be gone for 5 years.
Okay, before we move on to equipment, we have a motion and a second.
I got more.
Oh,
I got
okay.
more in the report.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry to drag this out a little bit, but I think it's important. A couple things, and I'll correlate this in a little bit later. But if you look at the transports under Section B, and you look at the ICE transports that are up to 580, and our medical transports, which have actually decreased, and those have decreased for a number of reasons. Our medical department, we have done some things through our medical department to save some transports, and transports are an issue for us for any corrections facility, because it means that you're taking somebody out of your building, which increases the possibilities of things happening, escapes, assaults, people getting hurt, things like that. Just the transporting from a liability standpoint, getting into a car accident sometimes can be problematic. So the fact that those numbers have been reduced a little bit are from, we have a portable x-ray company who we now don't transport individuals who need certain x-rays at the hospital. They actually come to our place, which is a big cost saver for us from a transport standpoint and a cost standpoint of the x-rays. The one issue that we have no control over is the juvenile transports. We get, no offense, Tom, we're not picking on you, but we don't get reimbursed for any of those transports, and that is something when you look at 336 trips to River Valley for juvenile transports. That is a lot of transports for bringing juveniles back and forth. And a lot of times when a juvenile gets arrested, he may get arrested one night. We bring him to River Valley because they can't stay at our place, and then the very next day we're going back to bring him back to court. So you're talking a quick turnaround time because of the time limits that the juvenile laws that are on the books. So just to kind of give you an idea of what causes that. And then lastly, on the sworn side, you know, one of the most important things that we talked about in here a lot are fatal accidents. We all know that one is actually too many. Last year we had 19. This year we had 9. It's an improvement, still not quite good enough, but an improvement nonetheless. And if you correlate that with citations, in 2017 between citations and written warnings, we wrote 1,624 citations and warnings. In 2018, we've written over 2,500 citations and warnings. So there is a correlation with increased traffic enforcement and traffic safety. And we, are a credit to our deputies who are out there every day, writing tickets, slowing people down. And many think that writing tickets is a revenue issue. And we all like to think it's a revenue issue, but it's more of a safety issue for us, for our community. So credit to our deputies for taking the lead on that. In addition, I know Mr. Rowe mentioned the DUI, the change that we made here locally with the no refusals. I'm proud of our department for stepping up and contributing to this initiative, and look forward to continuing it. It's worked out very well, and I think it's going to make a huge change coming up in the next year and so on. Once people know that they can't refuse to blow, that will change a lot of people's minds and hopefully alter their decision making. So that's it. I'm done.
You're sure?
With that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Equipment.
Yeah, and this is more of I'm not asking for any money, so please don't
Panic.
Yet. So because of our budget issues over the past 10 years, much of our equipment is either broken down in disrepair or barely limping along. Obviously, I want to thank you for your commitment to upgrade our fleet. At the present time, we replaced our 2011 squad cars with 2017 squads. Hopefully within the next couple months, we'll replace our 2012 squads with 2019 squads. And we are looking to replace our 2013 squads in the upcoming, whether it's this fiscal year or beginning of next fiscal year, but something to keep in mind. And I tell you all this because there's going to be some numbers here that are probably going to have you flabbergasted a little bit with our needs, but it's not something that I'm asking for today or tomorrow, but something that we need to be cognizant of, and something that we will continue to look for additional monies to do some of this stuff as well. So we talked about, and we asked for a phone system probably 2 years ago. That we were still in that phase with our money that it was just inconceivable to look at that amount of money to replace our phone system out at this building. This building's now 13 years old. Our phone system is down to our last parts. We've been ordering parts on eBay to replace some of them, and those parts are becoming non-existent. So if our phones were to go out at the jail or over here, obviously you can imagine the problems that would create. So we do have an estimate for that phone system, and it's $64,000. Again, I'm not asking for anything, so don't panic. We're just making you aware of some of the things, of some of our needs. Our in-car computers are, Trent, how old? 08, so 10 years. You can imagine going through the heat and cold with computers. The tough books are what they are. They are tough to last through heat and cold, but we are down to no spares, and obviously we can't get parts for them, so we are looking to replace those. Along with the cameras that are in, and we all know how important the in-car cameras are when it comes to protecting our officers from liability, from accusations that something happened that didn't happen. Every time we don't get many complaints, I couldn't tell you the last complaint we got, but when we do get a complaint, the first place we go is that in-car camera to see what exactly happened. And I can tell you we have not had a founded complaint that I'm aware of in a very, very long time. So the importance of those in-car cameras from just kind of a CYA thing for us, but also protection for the community when they're out. We don't want to ever be accused of not having equipment that works adequately, and somebody who got pulled over, maybe something did happen that we weren't able to get on camera. That could be problematic for all of us. So we are looking to upgrade the computers and the cameras, and that That total cost is $117,000. Radars, our radars in our cars are as old as the computers. Most of them are disabled. Well, I probably shouldn't say that in an open meeting, but some of them don't work. I won't tell you which ones, but some of them don't work. So, and those are about $3,300 a piece. Our investigation cars are as old as our 2011s, so they're 7 or 8 years old as well. Those are still operational, certainly, and but you know, those aren't. Unfortunately, cars don't last forever. And our e-ticketing system, which is a system that will allow us to print tickets right out of the car instead of handwriting them. We had a system that the company went out of business. Brazos, which is a part of Tyler, which is our software system, has given us a proposal. This would, the cost is $73,000, but other departments who want to get in on this, that includes their cost as well. So the $73,000 is not a hit for the county. It would be split up between municipalities who are involved in that. So, and lastly, the radio system. Our portable radios are up to date. We purchased those out of our seizure money, and every officer has a portable radio. It's the mobile radios that will need to be upgraded, and our estimated cost for that is approximately $145,000, and that will be mandatory in 2020 if we will not be able to communicate via our mobile radios after the changeover in 2020. So those are just some of the costs that we're looking at over the course of the next couple of years, and we will do our best to come up with resources to fund some of that as well. So, but I want to keep you guys aware of what we're looking at.
Hang on 1 second. I got a question first. Anything to upgrade the microphone system? The older we get, the harder it is to hear, you know.
Here, let me fix
Yeah.
Let me fix this thing back
See,
there. I'll turn it up. We can look into it.
Mr. Snyder.
I don't have a cost for you, but we can look into it.
I was looking for the aggregate number, and so far, what I kind of got is somewhere around the area of 254,000 of the numbers you gave.
Close.
So, and that's approximately about 127,000 a year if you broke it up. And I would just be interested if there's like a 3-tier program as to the importance of these in order to get them completed, and the timeline that you would kind of like them, and those that are kind of mandated.
Yeah, and I think, and that's a good point, but I think probably more importantly is I'll sit with the chairman and prioritize and see where we're at money-wise. And you know, I'm not certainly bringing this stuff here to break the bank, because we're not there yet, and we understand that. But you know, so I will definitely sit down with the chairman, who we've talked about a couple of these things, but we'll certainly communicate that with him and see where we can go, and certainly bring that back to this committee.
It sounds good. You know, a lot of times when we deal with the safety of our county, and when we're looking at dollars, I know that they are tight with coming out of, and we want to kind of make sure that we are sustainable. But if we look at it at that you can receive, because I'm only looking at $120,000 a year, and if you get granted something that covers half of that, and we have to cover the other half, I'm just saying before it gets to the point where it's like mandated, because he brought it to our attention, we can kind of look at it, see what we can work, think it's plausible.
Yep.
Just keep us abreast as
Yep.
you work with the chairman on this.
Will do. Thank you.
Anything else on equipment?
Nope.
Medical, food and medical safety.
Yeah, so part of, obviously, in our budget is included cell block supplies. We have a food line item, and one of the difficult parts of any institution, especially people that are coming and going like we have with marshals and ICE and other out of counties, are the movement of those individuals. So one of the difficulties we've had in the past is narrowing down a number of when it's time to feed breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I can tell you one thing's for sure, and it's probably true with all of us, but it's especially true with inmates. You don't want to run out of food. So that's a difficult task to say, well, our population's 100 or 600, but you know, we just got 20 new ones in, so now we've ordered 600 meals and we get 20 new detainees or inmates here, and now all of a sudden we're 20 meals short. We have a fabulous food provider. The Country Table does great work with us. They are very cognizant of the needs that we have. So we have assigned 2 of our correctional officers to work with Country Table, and the counts have become much more on target from the standpoint of what we're ordering, and that has saved us a lot over, well, probably the last couple of years, but I just wanted to bring that to you guys to say, you know, we're not over ordering, we're not under ordering, but we're trying to keep a guide of where we're at when we order that food. Same goes with mattresses. You know, the mattresses are expensive that we purchase for the ones that are in custody here. They track that, they track the property, so we know where our equipment's at. We know, so we limited a little bit of our cost to what we're spending on some of this equipment, which is a cost savings for all of us. So I just wanted you to be aware. The second one, the medical part, these numbers are going to stun you. We felt like we needed a better handle on our medical expenses, and our medical department literally hired somebody who was familiar with medical billing, things that, whether it's hospitals, doctors, whatever. And this person started in June, and from June to May, our medical bills of our local inmates, our medical bills, that's hospital, that's everything, was $105,917. Through the review of these bills and how they were billed and Medicaid and all this stuff that probably none of us in this room have any clue of whatsoever, and I may be wrong, maybe somebody does, but I know I don't. We were able to reduce that by $61,477. So that $105,000 bill ended up being about $44,000. So it's a credit to our medical department, a credit to somebody with the knowledge that understands how medical billing works, and I'm sure Mr. Byrne in the business knows. So that will be a continuous savings as we move forward. When we're paying the right amount to the medical providers, I mean, we all save money, the county benefits. So I just wanted to pass that along to our committee.
Questions or comments on that? How about a tour?
The tour, last one. So for the new members and even the members on the county board who've been here for a while, who maybe haven't had time to do anything or hadn't worked out in your schedule, we are certainly open to provide not only a tour, but to sit down and talk about our operation and how our operation affects the county and the finances and all that. So anybody who wants to can certainly call me, send me an email. Be more than happy to take you around. I would rather do it maybe multiple people at a time instead of individually, but we certainly would do it individually if that's what you prefer. But I just want to get that out there to let you know that we will certainly provide any information we can out of our office that would help you better understand the operation of the Sheriff's Office.
Question? Mr. Wheeler.
Just to add one point of clarification, that I remember this was a comment that was made in our meeting yesterday. Can you just talk about or describe the medical staff, what you have available to detainees and inmates? Because that comment was made and it kind of took me back a little bit, the insinuation that we don't provide adequate medical care.
I must have missed that one.
I did.
And I was listening.
Yeah.
Yes, so the
I hate when
comment
that
was
happens.
made.
My wife accuses me of that too, but so
It's common.
She doesn't watch, so. So yeah, medically, I mean, our medical staff budget is probably about slightly under $1 million. We have a doctor who we're required to have. We have 2 PAs. We have a number of part-time registered nurses. We have a couple full-time. How many full-time registered nurses? 7 full-time. 8? Was that a thumb or a? Okay, 8. So we have 8 registered nurses on staff. Almost, and I say almost around the clock. And I can tell you that from whether it's ICE or whether it's Cook County or whether, well, not so much Cook County, but whether it's the Marshals or ICE, Kankakee County is the go-to county for medical treatment. And we're pretty proud of that. And I can tell you my initial thought on this whole process was, you know what? Let's provide the bare minimum of what we have to provide by jail standards. That was, and shame on me, that was my initial response years ago. The doctors, the medical staff have convinced me that we as a community are all better off because a lot of these individuals, whether it's ICE or whether it's marshals, they don't get the proper treatment when they're on the street. And whether that's because they can't afford it, because they don't know what resources are available, because they're afraid to go, because they're going to get turned into ICE, whatever that reason is, they don't take care of themselves on the street. And, you know, we have really, I can tell you that any individual who is in our custody leaves our custody medically better than when they came in our building. And if people have a difficult time understanding that and the cost that we put towards that, you know, I can't apologize for it. I think, you know, somebody being healthy, you know, we have mental health issues going on. We have all kinds of things. We have, and I didn't even mention we have we have 2 mental health people who are here who deal with mental health issues. So we provide more than adequate treatment. In fact, I would say that those that are in our custody get better treatment than anyone in this room.
Just to follow up, the amount of money that the Finance Committee and the board allocate towards that, it's a lot, and it's a commitment.
Yes.
I think it shows that we care.
It is a lot, and this county cares. There's no question about it. And for that accusation, and there's some accusations that aren't accurate, and you know people are going to do that, and that's okay. I mean, that's their opinion, whatever.
Bilingual mental health. I just want, before I forget, bilingual mental health as well.
Bilingual mental health.
Thank
Yes.
you.
And you know, and I'll give you a little example of the treatment. So when somebody gets arrested, they come in here, we are required to do a physical assessment on them medically within 14 days, which we do. When they get sentenced to the Illinois Department, when and if they get sentenced to the Illinois Department of Corrections, they leave our building, and this could be within 6 months, within a year, whatever. They go to the RNC in Joliet, and they get another physical. Now, I don't know of anybody in here whose insurance pays for 2 physicals within a year. Oh, it gets better. So they're at Joliet RNC for maybe 30 to 60 days. When they leave and get designated to their facility, wherever that may be across the state of Illinois, they report to that facility and they get yet a 3rd physical. Now I know that no insurance company is going to pay for 3 physicals for any one of us sitting in this room without us having to pay the full price. We may get 1, but I'll guarantee you we don't get 3. So you wonder why, you know, all this money's being spent at that level. You know, an individual gets 3 physicals because, you know, they're in custody. That's better than, like I said, anybody in here. So, yeah, medically, I would put our medical staff up against anybody across the country. They care about these people. They do great work. And we provide, as I said, the marshals call us first. ICE calls us first when somebody has a medical issue wanting to know if we can handle it. So,
Mr. Washington.
Mike, I'm well aware of the medical treatment that is provided by this jail. I quite often get questions about how what kind of medical services are provided, and I'm proud to say to them that we give the best service that we can possibly give within this system.
No question.
I have no qualms about the service that we have compared to when I was running the jail back in '78.
Mm-hmm.
We had a nurse who would come every now and then, and the doctor would come only if he had to.
Only if he had to. Yeah.
Only if he had to. And to me, this is like driving Mercedes versus driving a little midget car or something. There's a big difference in the quality and the quantity of service that we
No
give
doubt.
today.
No doubt about it. Thank you.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Mr. Carrico.
Question is not related to the medical,
Sure.
but I just thought about this. Do we have any county program in place that is associated to patrolling the Kankakee River during boating season?
We do not. We don't have funds for it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next is probation. Mr. Latham. Have a monthly report from Mr. Latham in the packet. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Washington, second by Mr. Fairfield. Morning, Tom. Wonderful. Comments about your report, please.
Good morning, everyone. For the new members, I usually review the bottom of the report, year-to-date totals. And you can see we attempted 473 field contacts in the month. 413 were successful. That brings us to 6,900 successful field contacts this year. We had 1,940 office contacts, which gives us 2,353 contacts for November, and just over 28,000 year-to-date. Last year we had about a little over 30,000 successful field contacts, and I believe we'll hit that again. This year, we completed 55 investigations, you can see, and collected 180 drug tests. We collected 1,858 drug tests this year. And with the juvenile population, we screened 17 minors for detention, detained 10. Out of that 10, we have 5 at River Valley. It's quick. Any questions?
Maybe you should discuss River Valley real quick for the new members. Explain the amount of beds we have available and stuff like that.
Well, we have up until May was we own 25%, 25 beds, 26 beds at River Valley Detention Center in Joliet. We paid 25% of the operations and 25% of unreimbursed salaries. In May, we sold out, or how do I say it? We sold our interest in the ownership. We have an agreement with them for 12 beds over the next few years, being paid for out of the equity that we have in the building. We are paying, just for the operations, well over $1 million every year to house juveniles. At one point got as high as $500-something a day to detain a juvenile. So we still have the beds, we're still detaining juveniles. The amount of juveniles we detain on average has gone down over the years. Like I said, we have 5 in custody right now. It's probably right around 7 for the last few months on average. So it was costly to own those 26 beds. 12 is much better, and the price is much better. Andy, I don't know if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We still have the access to the other beds if we would need them. At times you wonder with sentencing and, you know, the focus on juveniles if it will ever get as high as it did again. It may in a spike, you know, in a bad summer, but at least we know we have that access, but we're paying for it when we use it instead of paying 25% of the whole building all the time, whether we use it or not. So that was part of that deal was, and I think it's 24 or 25 that we should not have to pay for use of that facility, you know. So just my only comment along those lines was maybe after the first quarter we could get kind of like a first quarter wrap up of usage and, you know, what we've taken off of the let's say the liquidity that we're using up there, but at some point maybe look at what that meant for the last part of 18 as well. So I don't want to say, hey, can you come next month with this big project done? But maybe at the end of the first quarter of FY 19.
Yeah, that won't be a problem.
You know,
And
just
I'm
kinda
going
get it
back and
together.
forth with their superintendent. We talked last week trying to get these reports.
The definition of a detention day.
Yeah.
When it starts and when it
Yeah,
ends.
that's
Yeah,
one issue
that would
too.
be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta hammer that one out.
But we do get full services for them, all the psychological services, medical, education. So they're getting all the services they had before. So.
I think it was good for both sides.
Any questions or comments about the report? Mr. Snipes?
So clientele looks like it's up like 60% child. Why the increase? The more individuals being placed on probation.
Yeah, simply put, yes. That's kind of the one thing that's a little different too is we have more and more specialized caseloads too. So even the same number is more work because people with specialized problem-solving courts and things like that carry lower caseloads because they are more intense. They see them more often. So as it goes up, it's more of a problem, more of an issue. We did get, I can't remember if I reported this last month, we did get through a grant, one more fully funded position grant period starts January 1st. So we're in the process of hiring that person, which will be very helpful. We have 2 vacancies right now, 1 new position, and then we did have somebody resign. So we'll fill both of those, bring in our circuit-wide staff up to 31, 25 in the Kankakee office, 6 in the Iroquois office. On top of that, we talked about specialized caseloads. Last week, Administrative Office of Illinois Courts issued new supervision standards statewide for the first time in years. Still going through it. It's a lengthy document, but the end result is going to be they want more in the community checks, which we do here. I think we're ahead of the curve on that one. We have people trained, we have policy in place, we have equipment in place, and we're out there already. That's something that's always been important to me, is to be out in the community and check the individuals. But it's more time consuming, and if there's an increase in how many we have to do, that's going to take some time. So that extra position that will kind of, lower the caseloads on average throughout the department is going to be helpful. So that was important.
One additional question. Even though I know we've kind of have some type of agreement with Will County as to the number of beds. I also realized that I believe it was in that contract that for 1 year it's like $250 dealing with the youth. And there was all of electronic monitoring and putting the brakes on and letting them stay at home. Versus, I'm just thinking at the time when, if we ever get a challenging time or period, whereas, there's a spike in youth activity where it would require them to be detained. With that being an option, have they considered that?
Yeah, we do it now. We don't use it that much with juvenile, but we have it. It's there. We do use it, and so if it ever increased, that's fine. We have everything in place. So it's in place. It's just mostly with our adults we use it, not so much with the juveniles. But the issues with juveniles, there's a couple things we were worried about a little bit was the legislation out there to increase the juvenile age from 18 to 21. Anybody under the age of 21 will be a juvenile. That's been out there forever, for a while I should say. So we just, I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but if something like that happened, that would obviously increase the numbers. We'd have to look at that more, of GPS, home confinement type thing.
Chairman Wheeler.
Just real quick, that's determined by the judge, though, correct? The ankle monitoring,
correct.
Home confinement, that's not your audit, it's the judge.
Yeah, it would be
we have no
likely detained initially,
Right.
come back with a detention hearing, and they would decide bracelet, home confinement. We have people on juveniles on home detention now that we check, all different times a day, night, weekends, and everything. So that's also an option too.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second on the report. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
That's it. Like I said to the new members, if anybody would like to sit down and meet with me, have any questions about probation court services, I'll give you my cell phone. Please give me a call if you have any questions.
Coroner's Office, Mr. Gessner, in your package you have a copy of the monthly report and also on the income report. I'll take a motion to combine and approve. Ms. Dunbar, second by Mr. Eckhoff. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, how are you?
Wonderful. Comments on your reports?
Just briefly, this is basically not our final numbers will come in. You can see that our autopsies basically have come down quite considerably. We totaled about 94 autopsies last year, or excuse me, this year, and 130 last year, so that's quite a difference. We owe that, as I'll do in my reports here. The outside autopsies have gone up a little bit, which we're anticipating our numbers are going up because of probably with the introduction of Riverside By and Iroquois down there. I'm sure that they'll be coming up to the trauma center a little bit more. Jasper County and Newton County, Iroquois County and Will County also coming to the north, so that could be an increase coming up here. Other than that, our suicide rates have gone down from 19 last year to only 3 this year, which is good. And our overdoses basically from 56 overdoses of the different drugs have gone down now to 29. We just got the final one just a few minutes ago. 29 overdoses this year, which is considerably a decrease, and the average age is still around 40 years of age. 18 males and 11 females. Caucasians, 22 Caucasians, 6 African Americans, and 1 Hispanic. Overdose roughly right around $45,000 it cost us this year compared to $84,000 last year. We owe that to a lot, and I'll show you, and just briefly letting you know that our budget was set at $516,000, which was always it was over all the time. Finally, in 2018, I can stand up here and say that the $516,000 we are right now, we're looking to give back approximately almost $57,000 back to the county. Which, just to let you know on certain things that have transpired is, we've also, not only in that, as I talked about 57, we've had a grant, 2 grants in a row, $225,000 to go out to teach, go out and do a lot of things that my chief deputy and I do, along with Riverside and along with the health department. Just between Eric and I, our grant salaries, we got back $17,000, and our grant mileage reimbursement is $1,500, and our morgue use is about almost $6,000. Which again is a total, if you add that total, that 57, we're going to give back to you $82,000 from our budget. I'm extremely happy. I thank a lot of people for it, to be able to get out to the community. We've hit almost 6,000 people now throughout our community. We're continually going on. We're at a kind of a halt right now over the holidays. It's still going on. We've still got a lot of problems. Our next major problem, I predicted the heroin problem. I'm looking you all straight in the face and telling you, look out for the marijuana coming in town here. The governor already said he's going to do it, and the mayor from Chicago announced today that they're backing the marijuana. And I'm telling you, that's a young man's drug. And it's averaging out to about 90% pure THC out there now. And I talked to you last time about the longs that are being used out there. It's like smoking 20 joints at one time because they're too lazy to wrap it. And this is what's happening. We're doing statistics right now on THC in our community. And there's an uprise on fatalities that we're having, on car accidents. So look for that statistics to come out. But I know that we've been out working on this, and it shows an improvement. Not only does it from the coroner's office, I thank of all the police officers that are helping and stopping people, getting the different drugs that are in their cars. That's a great help, along with the KMAG. All these people are all working together in the community. That's called communications. We all communicate. So these are some of the things that can happen in here, and I'm proud to stand after since 1984 I've been in the office. I've not seen it. We've been able to hit the right number, and we finally hit the right number to bring the money back to you. And not saying I can't predict next year. If I could, I wouldn't be the corner. I'd be up in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But I'm really pleased to bring that to you. We'll have more numbers to you. We still have, if you look at our statistics there, you still see the incompletes. There's 8 incompletes right now, it shows us, until that's all wrapped up. The homicide that we just had is another big cost factor to us, because some of the things we have to do with that, with the eyes and the brain, we have to do. That's almost another $1,500 in total. Almost $3,400 it costs us to do that autopsy. That's in that budget, so don't worry about that. We predicted that going into that budget, so I'm happy to say that. And I'll take any questions, but to the new people, I definitely say good morning to you, and I'm glad to have you on board. I know most of you. I'm also saying, and probably don't get a lot of people there, but my morgue is always open to watch an autopsy. At least come over there to view the autopsy. That's why it's called the Forensic Center. We have improved that considerably, and I'd like to show that off. And still, as you heard the sheriff talk about 13 years of age, step over to our morgue and I'll bet you can't tell if it's 13 years old. And that's done by my staff, not done by the facility. We do all that inside.
Mr. Lear.
That yes, some pay ahead. With the people from outside our county, we got to chase them down to get their money. So what we do now is have a credit card, and they have to pay, or otherwise they don't get their cremation. So most of the funeral homes will, in our area here, will give us $1,000, for instance, $500, and that goes into the account. That's why you see a difference between them. We watch that pretty good.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve both reports. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Last thing I want to say is that I got busy yesterday at the office. I didn't get to the county board. My chief deputy, he's been with me for 10 years. But back June 25th in 2008, you remember that I gave him an award for becoming a deputy coroner, an honorary deputy coroner, and he's worked his way up to the chief deputy.
Congratulations. My text message to him yesterday was, where was he to get his... Mr. Wheeler.
Just real quick, accolades and stuff are tough to throw around when we're still in a situation of financial whatever, you know what I mean? We don't like to pat ourselves on the back, but thanks for all you're doing. You pay for a lot of things out of your coroner's fees that the county board never sees or never recognizes. I see it, I know it, and I appreciate the work you do. Most people are concerned with their budget. I know that it's something that you take a look at almost every single day, and I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments?
As the name Robert speaks volumes.
Oh, gee. Any old business to come before the committee? Any old business? Any new business? Any new business? Mr. Legess. Okay, second by Ms. Parker. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Whoop. Okay, we have all kinds of papers to sign over here.